Hi everyone, Mr. Earl with you. Today's topic is comparing and ordering integers. But first, why is it so sad that parallel lines have so much in common? Because they'll never meet. Today's topic, as I said, comparing and ordering integers. Let's remember what an integer is. An integer is defined as all whole numbers and their opposites. So let's look at some numbers right here. Numbers like 5 and -5, or 12 and -27. All these numbers over here, these are integers. Let's look at some numbers over here. Numbers like 1.2 or 3 1/5, not integers. So again, integers are just whole numbers and their opposites. Numbers like 5 and -5, or 32 and 55, all integers. What we're doing today, the first part of the video, is about comparing them. We want to see which one is larger or which one is smaller. Usually in sports, the larger score wins the game. Let's take a game of baseball, for example. If one team scores 10 and the other score is 7, 10 is larger than 7, so the team with 10 would have won the game. A sport like golf, interestingly enough, it's actually the lowest score that wins. So let's say I played golf and I scored a 37 and my opponent scored a 39. Which one is lower? Well, the 37 is lower, so the 37 would have won the golf match. When we compare numbers, we start using that symbol, that less than or greater than symbol. And I've put it here on the dry erase board for you with a 3 and a 7. That's what we're comparing. So one of the first things you want to be able to do is to be sure you're familiar with which number goes on which side of this symbol. There are lots of clever ways to remember this, but I like to think of the little number as eating the larger number. If you put some little teeth inside this symbol right here, you could think of the 3 eating the 7. So the little number goes over here, larger number goes over here. And again, the little number eats the larger number. What's also really helpful when we compare, or even later when we start talking about ordering integers, is being familiar with this number line down here. I have a small little number line that goes from -5 all the way up to 5. So if we're comparing numbers, the further to the left that we go on the number line, the smaller the number gets. My number line only stops at -5 right here, but it would continue on with -6, -7, and so forth. Up here, I ran out of room and I stopped with a 5, but of course, it would continue with 6, 7, and 8 on from there. So whichever number is further to the left is going to be smaller, and whichever number is further to the right is going to be larger. Let's compare a couple of numbers. Let's compare 3 and -3. Look at them here on the screen. Draw yourself a number line, or picture a number line in your head and ask yourself, which number is further to the left on the number line? Well, the -3 would be further to the left, so we would say that -3 is less than +3. Let's compare a couple other numbers. Let's compare -21 and +7. -21, +7. Think about your number line. Which number would be further to the left on the number line? Well, the -21 would be further to the left on the number line. So therefore we would say -21 is less than +7. Or you could simply just say 7. When you're writing positive numbers, you don't necessarily have to put a positive or a plus sign in front of the number. But when you're writing a negative number, you need to make sure that that negative symbol is right in front of the number. And that's an important thing to keep an eye out for when you're comparing or when you're ordering integers, which was what we're going to talk about next. All right, we're back with part 2. And in part 2, we're going to talk about ordering integers, or putting them in order. Let's say you have a group of numbers and they ask you to put the numbers in order from least to greatest. Remember, think of that number line or even draw that number line on a piece of paper. And think about which numbers are going to be furthest to the left on that number line. Let's take the numbers 7, -4, 3, and -5. Go ahead and draw yourself a number line and then start plotting those numbers on the number line and see which one appears furthest to the left, and then plot the other numbers on that number line to determine the order from least to greatest. If you put them on that number line, in order from least to greatest, those numbers would be -5, -4, 3, and 7. So when you're comparing and ordering integers, it's real important to pay attention to that negative sign if it is in front of a number. Because remember, the further to the left you go on your number line, for example, 1 is further to the left than 4. Therefore, 1 is less than 4. But remember, when you go past the 0 and you start to get into these negative numbers and they continue all the way out, let's say somewhere out here is -20. Where would -17 be? -17 would start moving in closer to the 0, right? So -20 would be less than -17. It's very, very helpful. If you're a visual learner like most of us are, it's really helpful to draw yourself a number line as you're working through this process. I'm going to give you a couple up here on the screen for you to try with some background music. Good luck. Well, that wraps up our show for today. As always, I remind you to stay safe and be kind to each other. So long.